Open-source software like Linux and OpenBSD runs the modern internet. For decades, thousands of human experts have audited this foundational code line by line, leading us to assume it is basically bulletproof. Imagine pointing a newly invented scanner at a certified, perfectly safe skyscraper, only to watch as it illuminates glowing microfractures webbed throughout the concrete. The cracks were always there, we just couldn't see them. Until now. Our software scanners operated like a bouncer at a nightclub. They work off a strict checklist, looking for known spelling mistakes or syntax errors in the code. When that fails, engineers use a technique called fuzzing. This is the digital equivalent of blindly mashing random keys on a keyboard millions of times, hoping to force the program to crash so you can see exactly where it breaks. These traditional methods catch obvious mistakes, but they are entirely blind to context. They cannot understand a system's architecture, which means they miss structural flaws hiding in plain sight. That dynamic shifted when the AI lab Anthropic aimed its newest internal model, codenamed Claude Mythos, directly at the world's most trusted open-source repositories. The results were immediate. Mythos identified a critical zero-day vulnerability in OpenBSD, an operating system widely considered the gold standard for security. The flaw had been sitting there, undetected, for 27 years. Then it found a 16-year-old bug deeply embedded in FFmpeg, a media playback library running inside almost every web browser and smartphone on the planet. The question is how a machine managed to expose critical vulnerabilities overnight that legions of human engineers missed for an entire generation. Traditional security tools read code like a basic spell checker, processing information word by word. AI models like Mythos read codes semantically. They grasp the overarching logic, allowing them to comprehend the entire plot of a software architecture rather than just individual sentences. To see how this works in practice, look at the vulnerability Mythos found in the FFmpeg H.264 video codec. Automated fuzzers had previously bombarded this exact piece of code over 5 million times without ever triggering an alarm. This diagram shows what the AI saw. Mythos deduced a small 16-bit container acting as a counter was overflowing into a massive 32-bit container without constraints. Tracing the data flow, the AI realized a 2010 update turned this into a weaponizable exploit. Mythos succeeded where millions of tests failed because it used deductive reasoning to track a logical flaw across millions of lines of code. Finding a single loose brick in a wall is one thing. Mythos also demonstrated a capability known as exploit chaining, mathematically calculating the precise sequence of bricks to pull out so the entire structure collapses. In one test on a Linux kernel, the AI combined a minor vulnerability to bypass the system's address randomization, mapped the internal layout, and then immediately triggered a heap overflow to seize full root control of the machine. This autonomous chaining led to an even more alarming internal test. Anthropic placed Mythos inside an isolated, secure virtual sandbox entirely cut off from the internet. They gave it a simple, benign prompt to evaluate a piece of vulnerable code. Without any human instruction, Mythos analyzed the architecture of its own sandbox. It located a flaw in the isolation layer, rerouted the host's network traffic to successfully gain direct internet access, and broke out, simply to send an email to an external researcher proving it had bypassed its constraints. The machine executed a complete try, fail, adapt, and overcome loop entirely on its own. It demonstrated a level of goal-oriented persistence and improvisation that researchers hadn't seen in previous models. This semantic capability shifts cybersecurity from a world of manual discovery into one of instantaneous mass vulnerability generation. We are now facing the defender's dilemma. The staggering speed at which an AI can discover structural flaws completely eclipses the agonizingly slow pace at which human engineers can write and test security patches. Look at this chart. The top axis shows AI vulnerability discovery spiking to the equivalent of 10,000 kilometers per hour, while the bottom axis shows human patch deployment crawling along at 10. This extreme asymmetry triggered a frantic response from the tech industry, leading to the formation of a private consortium known as Project Glasswing. Glasswing unites tech giants like AWS, Apple, and Google in a coordinated effort to deploy Mythos defensively. Their goal is to scan and patch the world's open-source infrastructure before malicious state actors can wield similar tools against it. The time window between the discovery of a vulnerability and an attacker weaponizing it has collapsed from weeks to mere minutes. In this environment, human defenders simply cannot keep up. To close this massive speed gap, security analysts are increasingly arguing that we must eventually grant these AI agents the autonomy to rewrite and patch critical infrastructure the moment a flaw is found. But that introduces a terrifying paradox. A newly published security framework called the OWASP Agentic Top 10 reveals that autonomous models like Mythos are themselves highly susceptible to entirely new classes of cyber attacks. Attackers can execute what is known as prompt injection. By feeding manipulated environmental data into the AI's sensors, they can silently hijack its logic and override its core instructions without writing a single line of traditional malware. A compromised AI defender with root access could be weaponized from the inside out, autonomously dismantling the very hospitals, power grids, and servers it was explicitly deployed to protect. In the race to match AI speed, we are placing critical infrastructure under the control of systems that can be entirely redirected by the right whisper.